how to quickly revive any dying orchid with just one simple trick. Today I'll share a real-life case of a critically ill orchid and how I helped it come back to life step by step. Here's a case of an orchid plant that's wilting, weakening, and quite severely diseased. When you encounter an orchid in a similar condition, don't throw it away immediately. As you can see, the leaves have wilted, wrinkled, and softened. The main cause is bacteria directly invading the leaves. If you're new to the channel, please hit the like and subscribe buttons to support me and so you don't miss any orchid care tips. It's great to have you as a companion on this journey. Next, I'll check inside the pot to see where the cause is coming from. There's a lot of mold and bacteria growing on the leaf surface, especially in low humidity and poor ventilation. This environment creates conditions for the disease to spread quickly and gradually damage each leaf. When you remove the growing medium, you'll clearly see that the roots underneath are heavily moldy. The medium retains water for too long, creating a lack of oxygen, allowing bacteria and mold to directly attack the roots. This prevents the plant from absorbing nutrients, causing it to weaken further. We need to treat the plant early and properly to save it, giving the orchid a chance to recover and grow again. Next, prepare a clean pair of scissors to trim away all the damaged roots. Without hesitation, as leaving any behind would only spread the disease further. Fortunately, the inside of the root was still fresh, indicating that only the roots were damaged, while the stem and bulb was still alive. I continued to cut away all the damaged and rotten roots, keeping only the healthy stem. This means our orchid still has a chance of being saved. You can see the leaves are still fresh, just soft due to prolonged nutrient deficiency, causing them to lose their green color, reduce chlorophyll, and look quite weak. But don't worry, as long as the stem and roots are alive, there's still hope. After treating the roots, I will separate the plant to continue with the next steps of care and recovery. After the initial treatment, I thoroughly cleaned the orchid with clean water. I gently washed each part, from the base to the remaining roots, to remove all bacteria, mold, and dirt. When the plant is properly cleaned, its recovery will be faster. It will become noticeably healthier, and its future growth will be much more efficient. Look here, the plant still has some fresh roots, and as long as that's still there, the hope of revival is very high. Now I'll place the plant in a well-ventilated area, preparing for the next step in the process of saving and restoring the orchid. Next, I took out a clean container. Then I poured 1 liter of clean filtered water into the container. Next, I add a teaspoon of baking soda. It sounds simple, but it's very effective. It helps the orchid resist bacteria and fungi, while also stimulating recovery and healthier growth. I take a teaspoon of baking soda and add it to water, stirring until it dissolves completely, creating a clear solution. Next, I placed the orchid in the container and soaked it. I filled the container with water, covering the base and roots, allowing the plant to gradually absorb the nutrients. I soaked it for about 30 minutes. This amount of time is sufficient for the orchid roots to be disinfected, soothed, and begin to recover. After 30 minutes, I lifted the orchid out of the solution. At this point, it looked completely different. The mold and dirt were almost entirely removed. I wiped it again, slowly and carefully, to remove any remaining dirt and mold patches completely. Seeing that the orchid leaves were clean and the stem was drier, I felt confident enough to place it outside and prepare for the next step in its care. Next, I took the orchid outside and used a jar of cinnamon powder to disinfect it. I gently dabbed the cinnamon powder on the cuts, wounds on the stem, and roots, being very careful not to burn the plant. Cinnamon powder has excellent antibacterial and antifungal properties, and it also helps stimulate the orchid to recover and grow faster. After this step, I placed the plant in a dry, airy place to allow it to dry and heal, preparing it for the next steps in its care. Next, I took out the pine bark substrate and used the remaining baking soda solution to disinfect it. I poured this solution into the pine bark to soak it, washing away any bacteria and mold lurking inside. I soaked the pine bark for about an hour, ensuring the substrate was completely clean before replanting. After soaking and treating it for an hour, I removed the substrate and spread it out to dry completely. Once the pine bark was dry, clean, and well ventilated, I began replanting the orchid. Moving on to the next step, once the wounds on the orchid had completely dried and begun to heal, I felt confident enough to plant it. I chose a pot with plenty of drainage holes to ensure the roots were well ventilated and wouldn't become waterlogged. Then, I placed the plant in the pot, using a substrate of cleaned, shredded pine bark. This type of substrate is very airy, environmentally friendly, and especially good for orchid roots. When adding the substrate, I gently patted the pot to help the plant stand upright without damaging the roots. And that's it. I've successfully planted an orchid, carefully following each step. Next, I covered the rim of the pot with a very thin layer of moss. This moss helps retain just enough moisture, allowing the roots to stabilize, grow, and develop better. At this point, I had finished planting a complete orchid pot. Afterward, I placed the plant in a shady, well-ventilated area with gentle light, not harsh sunlight. I let the plant rest for about a day so the roots could acclimate to the environment and firmly establish themselves in the growing medium before I began caring for it. The next day, I checked again and found that the orchid's roots had stabilized in the pot and were quite firmly anchored. At this point, I began gently caring for the plant without rushing, allowing it to gradually adapt to its new environment. Next, I prepared a coconut. I will use this coconut water to nourish the plant, helping the orchid absorb more natural minerals, supporting stronger roots and promoting faster recovery. After that, I drained the coconut water to remove all the rinsing water and poured out the rest of the coconut water. Measuring the amount of coconut water obtained, approximately 200 milliliters, just enough to nourish the plant, not too much, but very rich in nutrients for orchids during their recovery phase. Next, I take about 50 milliliters of coconut water. I don't use this directly, but dilute it with 1 liter of clean water. Next, I prepared 1 liter of clean filtered water. Then, I poured in 50 milliliters of coconut milk and stirred well until the two parts were thoroughly mixed. Once the mixture was homogeneous, I could safely use it to care for my orchids. It was gentle on the plants and helped them absorb nutrients better. Next, I took out the bottle and poured in the freshly prepared coconut water solution. Then, I took the orchid out and began gently spraying the upper surface of the leaves. As I sprayed, I clearly saw the dirt and mold being gradually washed away, and the orchid leaves looked much cleaner. Not only did it clean, but the coconut water also penetrated deep through the capillaries in the leaves, helping the plant absorb nutrients slowly. Next, I gently watered the base and growing medium of the orchid with the coconut water solution. As the water seeps in, the roots begin to slowly absorb nutrients, pushing them back up the stem and leaves. Coconut water contains many natural nutrients such as vitamins A, B, and minerals, helping the plant regenerate its vitality, like being rejuvenated. After watering, I soaked the entire pot for about 20 minutes, then removed the plant to drain. At this stage, I moved the plant to the garden, placing it in a well-ventilated shady spot with gentle light. At this point, the plant is still weak, so I absolutely avoid direct sunlight, only allowing it to receive soft light for gentle photosynthesis. After 3 weeks, you can see that my orchid has truly revived. The previously wilted leaves are quickly turning green again, with the remaining leaves healthier and a much brighter green. The leaves are now upright and sturdy, no longer drooping as before. Especially, new shoots have started to emerge, and new buds are clearly developing, signaling that the plant is entering its growth cycle again. I carefully checked the roots and found that the new roots are very healthy, white, thick, and firmly attached. Strong root development indicates that the plant has absorbed nutrients and maintained stable moisture levels. The tips are also gradually turning green again, and the young leaves are becoming stronger, adapting to the natural environment. As you can see, with proper care, patience, and dedication, orchids can completely recover and thrive. Next, I will prepare fertilizer to nourish the plant for its next growth stage. Next, I chose rice as an additional natural fertilizer to further nourish my orchids. Rice contains many B vitamins and minerals, helping the plants recover quickly, strengthen roots, and produce greener leaves. I put 3 tablespoons of rice into the container. Rice is a very familiar ingredient, yet it's rich in nutrients. Next, I add about 500 milliliters of clean filtered water to the prepared rice. Then I stir well so that the nutrients in the rice dissolve in the water. After stirring, I let it sit for about 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, I opened it and saw that the rice water had dissolved all the minerals. At this point, I took a clean container and filtered out the rice sediment, keeping only the pure water. After filtering, I had nutrient-rich rice water ready to use to care for and help my orchids absorb nutrients better. Next, I put the nutrient solution into a spray bottle. When I hold the bottle up to spray, I gently spray the upper surface of the leaves to wash away dirt and mold. Then, I spray the underside of the leaves as well, because this is where the plant absorbs nutrients very well. This foliar fertilization method helps the plant retain moisture and absorb nutrients quickly. Watching the plant get healthier every day, I feel really satisfied. Next, I gently watered the roots, allowing the water to gradually seep down so the plant could absorb it slowly. I covered the roots again, arranged them neatly, then moved the plant to the garden, placing it in a shady, well-ventilated spot with plenty of light. In its original location, the plant still received gentle sunlight for photosynthesis. The leaves gradually became stronger, and new shoots began to develop. After 2 months, the plant had almost completely recovered. The leaves that were previously withered and weak were now green again, healthy and sturdy as before. What surprised me most was that the plant started to sprout flower stalks, not 1, but 2, growing very vigorously. New shoots continued to develop, and the young leaves were bursting out in a lush green. The root system was noticeably stronger, penetrating deep into the substrate and firmly anchoring the pot. It was clear the plant was truly stable and mature. With strong roots and new shoots, I knew for sure the orchid would continue to sprout roots. Its leaves would be lush and green, and it would bloom regularly throughout the year. As long as I cared for it properly, patiently, and poured my heart and love into it, the orchid would not disappoint. What do you think of this orchid care method? Don't hesitate to leave a comment and share your thoughts. I really want to hear your feedback and experiences. Every share from you is a valuable source of motivation that helps us learn and love plants more every day.